I walked into our house and heard an unfamiliar voice. A man's voice. Laughter. And then words that made me shudder: "He's a complete idiot. Just a couple more months, and I'll file for divorce, leave him with nothing." I stood frozen in the hallway, my briefcase still in hand. 6 years. 6 years of marriage where I thought we had everything figured out. Where I believed we were building something together. The voice from our living room continued, my wife's laughter echoing behind it. "You should see how he just hands over his paycheck," Emily said, her voice carrying that playful tone she used to reserve for me. "He thinks I'm some financial wizard, investing it all for our future." More laughter. My stomach knotted as I stood there, invisible, hearing my life dissected by strangers. "And he has no idea?" the male voice asked. "None. David works 60-hour weeks at that consulting firm, comes home exhausted, and just trusts me. It's almost too easy." I could picture her there, Emily with her honey blonde hair, probably twirling it around her finger the way she did when she was feeling particularly clever. The diamond ring I'd saved for months to buy her probably glinting on her hand. "When are you planning to drop the bomb?" "Memorial Day weekend. I've already talked to a lawyer who specializes in situations like ours. Most of our assets are in accounts I control. David signed everything over to me years ago when I convinced him I had a passion for financial planning." She laughed again. "By the time he figures out what's happening, I'll be in Belize with most of our savings. The house is technically his from before we married, but my lawyer thinks we can get it in the settlement." I'd heard enough. The ringing in my ears grew deafening as I quietly stepped back out the front door, closing it silently behind me. In the driveway, I sat in my car, staring at our 2-story colonial home with its perfectly manicured lawn, the home I'd purchased before Emily came into my life, the one she now planned to take from me. 6 years. 6 years I'd spent building what I thought was a partnership. I'd met Emily at a friend's barbecue. She'd been vibrant, intelligent, ambitious. When we married after only 8 months of dating, my friends had warned me it was too fast. But I'd been certain. She'd been my everything. I didn't drive away immediately. Instead, I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Alex Gibson Investigations," a gruff voice answered. "I need your services," I said quietly. "It's about my wife." 2 days later, I met Alex in a coffee shop 15 miles from my neighborhood. He was a burly ex-cop with salt and pepper hair and eyes that had seen too much. "You sure you want to see this?" he asked, sliding a manila envelope across the table. I nodded, picking it up without opening it. "How bad is it?" "About as bad as these things get," he replied. "She's been seeing the same guy for 13 months. Name's Richard Carver. Works at her gym as a personal trainer. There's more, though." "The money?" "She's been siphoning funds from your joint accounts for at least 18 months. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. She's got about $217,000 squirreled away in an offshore account. The account information is in there too." I paid him in cash, adding a generous tip. "Can you stay on this for a few more weeks? I need to know her movements, her plans." "You planning something stupid?" he asked, eyes narrowed. I shook my head. "Nothing illegal. Just preparing." That night, I went home at my regular time. Kissed Emily hello. Ate the dinner she'd prepared. Asked about her day. Told her about mine. Watched as she lied effortlessly about spending the afternoon at her mother's house. "You look tired," she said, running her fingers through my hair, her touch no longer comforting but sickening. "Why don't you turn in early? I'll clean up." "You're good to me," I said, forcing a smile. "Always," she replied. For the next 3 weeks, I lived a double life. At home, I was the same trusting, exhausted husband. I brought her flowers on our monthly anniversary. I thanked her when she showed me fabricated investment reports about how well our money was doing. But outside our home, I was methodically dismantling the trap she'd set for me. I started with a new lawyer, Vanessa Chen, a divorce attorney known for her ruthless efficiency. I showed her everything Alex had uncovered. "She's been planning this for a while," Vanessa observed. "But she made mistakes. The house is clearly premarital property. We have documentation of her theft. The courts won't look kindly on that. I don't just want to survive this," I told her. "I want her to understand what she's losing." Vanessa's smile was sharp. "Then let's get to work. First, I needed to secure my finances." One Tuesday morning while Emily was at her yoga class, actually a meeting with Richard in a hotel downtown, according to Alex's surveillance, I visited our bank. "I'd like to remove my wife as an authorized user on all accounts," I told the manager, a woman named Patricia who'd known Emily and me for years. Patricia's eyes widened slightly. "May I ask why, Mr. Mitchell?" "It's a surprise," I said, smiling conspiratorially. "We're renewing our vows, and I'm setting up something special. Just temporary." She hesitated, then nodded. "Of course. Will you be needing anything else today?" "Yes," I said. "I'd like to open a new account. In my name only." By the end of the day, I'd transferred every penny from our joint accounts except for a small operating balance. Emily wouldn't notice immediately, she rarely checked the accounts daily, confident in her control. Next came the house. I called a locksmith and had new keys made. I scheduled them to come and change the locks 3 weeks later, on a Saturday when Emily would be at her monthly spa retreat, a tradition I'd encouraged early in our marriage, one she'd never skip. I documented everything in our home, taking photos of items of value, creating an inventory. According to Vanessa, this would protect me if Emily tried to claim I'd hidden assets. Throughout all of this, I maintained the facade at home. I brought her coffee in bed on Sundays. I listened to her plans for our future. I watched her text Richard when she thought I wasn't looking. Alex continued his surveillance, sending me daily updates. Emily and Richard had started looking at properties in Belize. They'd had lunch with her lawyer twice. She'd withdrawn another $10,000 from an account I hadn't known existed. 3 days before the locks were scheduled to be changed, I suggested the spa weekend. "You've been working so hard managing our finances," I told her over dinner. "You deserve a break. Why not go to that resort you love? The one with the hot stone massages?" Her eyes lit up. "Really? You don't mind?" "Of course not. Take the whole weekend. I've got that work project anyway." I smiled. "I'll probably just order pizza and fall asleep on the couch." She kissed me, her lips lingering longer than usual. "You're the best, babe. You know that?" I wondered if she felt any guilt at all. The morning she left, I helped her load her overnight bag into her car. Kissed her goodbye. Told her I loved her. "Love you too," she said easily. "Don't work too hard." I watched her drive away, knowing it was the last time she'd leave our house as my wife. The locksmith arrived an hour later. I supervised as every lock was changed. Then I called the security company and had the access codes updated. By nightfall, the house was secured against her return. That night, I sat in our living room, my living room, with a glass of bourbon and the divorce papers Vanessa had prepared. They were fair, even generous in some respects. Emily would get nothing from the house, but I wasn't pursuing the money she'd already stolen. I just wanted her gone. My phone buzzed with a text from Alex, meeting Richard for dinner at La Maison. Looks like celebrating. I imagined them toasting to my downfall, laughing about how easy it had all been. The thought no longer hurt, the pain had calcified into something harder, more resolute. Sunday afternoon, exactly when I expected her, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emily standing there, weekend bag in hand, smile fading as she noticed the new doorknob. "David? Why didn't my key work?" I stood in the doorway, not inviting her in. Because I changed the locks. Confusion crossed her face. What? Why would you? Your things are in the garage, I interrupted, my voice calm. Everything that belongs to you is boxed and labeled. My things? Her confusion was transforming to anger. What the hell are you talking about? Let me in, David. This isn't funny. I reached behind me and retrieved the manila envelope containing the divorce papers. I heard you, Emily. 3 weeks ago. I came home early and heard everything you said to Richard. The blood drained from her face. I don't know what you. Stop. I held up my hand. It's over. I know about the money you've been stealing. I know about Belize. I know about the plans to take my house. I know everything. She switched tactics instantly, tears filling her eyes. Baby, please. Whatever you think you heard, it's not. Save it for Richard, I said, handing her the envelope. My lawyer drew these up. You'll find they're quite generous, considering the circumstances. You get to keep the money you've already stolen. I'm not pressing charges for fraud or theft. But you get nothing else. You can't do this, she whispered, the tears vanishing as quickly as they'd appeared. This is my home too. No, it's not. The deed is in my name. I purchased it before we were married. It's premarital property, and your plans to defraud me are well documented. You can fight it in court, but you'll lose. Her eyes hardened. You think you're so clever. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, I do. That's why I've taken precautions. Every account has been secured. Every asset has been documented. Your access to everything has been revoked. I stepped back. Your lawyer's contact information is included in the papers. Vanessa will coordinate with them directly. David, please, she tried one last time, her voice softening. We can work this out. Whatever you think is happening. Goodbye, Emily, I said, and closed the door. Through the window, I watched her stand there for several long minutes, staring at the house in disbelief. Then she pulled out her phone, calling Richard, no doubt. Finally, she walked to the garage and began loading the boxes into her car. I poured another bourbon and watched as my wife of 6 years drove away with everything she'd come into our marriage with, and nothing more. The text came 3 days later, "You've ruined my life." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. In the weeks that followed, Emily tried everything. She sent friends to reason with me. She called my parents. She even showed up at my office, causing a scene that nearly got her arrested. But I remained resolute. The divorce was finalized in record time, largely due to the overwhelming evidence of her misconduct. She didn't fight it, couldn't, really. The judge had been particularly unimpressed by the documented financial fraud. 6 months after I'd overheard that fateful conversation, I was officially single again. The house was mine. My finances were recovering. I'd started therapy to process the betrayal and my own role in being so blind to it. I ran into Richard at a gas station a year later. He looked haggard, exhausted. She did the same thing to me, he said without preamble. Cleaned out my accounts and disappeared. Left me with nothing but excuses to give my ex-wife about where our kids' college fund went. I should have felt vindicated. Should have taken pleasure in knowing Emily had revealed her true nature to the man she'd betrayed me with. Instead, I felt a profound emptiness. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. He laughed bitterly. You know what the worst part is? I actually believed we were in love. Me too, I replied. Sometimes I wonder where she is now. If she found another target, another life to dismantle for profit. Sometimes I wonder if the house still feels like home, or if it's just a monument to something that never really existed. 6 years. 6 years of believing in something that was a lie from the start. But I survived. I rebuilt. I learned to trust again, starting with myself. And sometimes, on quiet nights when the memories threaten to overwhelm me, I remind myself of the most important lesson Emily ever taught me: the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. And I am, finally, indifferent to the woman who almost destroyed me.